All right. Good morning, everybody. Let's get rocking and rolling here. Hey, it's an interesting market, isn't it? And I think that everybody's experiencing that just a hair. And I think that you're seeing people who are raging and flourishing economically in this business as agents. And then you're seeing a handful of agents, if not a lot of agents, who are really struggling. Fundamentally, if you didn't have a chance to watch my coaching call, I know it's being posted up on the Everest sites on Facebook. I would encourage you to listen to that. I think it was probably sent out to the company, but I would just encourage you to watch that. And I would encourage you to really take a look at what's really going on in today's marketplace, specifically to the differentiation of buyers and sellers. And you're seeing this huge gap. And one of the things that I could identify, and I think that many of you who were in the business in 2008, 9, 10, as an example, you saw that market was a very, very robust buyer's market. Today, you've seen it move into a just radically and crazy seller's market. I don't think anyone's going to deny us of that, right? And although rates are still very, very low, the reality is that we have great challenges in regards to inventory. We have great challenges in regards to multiple offer situations. So the question that you have to ask yourself then is, how do you guarantee yourself a successful outcome for 2021? Well, one of the things that I'm going to encourage you to do, and it doesn't mean that you can't have buyers, and it doesn't mean you can't work with a buyer, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to sell a buyer. But if I go back to 08, 9, and 10, where literally 1 out of every 10 sellers were able to sell their homes, and 50% or more of the market, no matter where you were in this country, was at least at a 50% short sale ratio, you see that we're really, interestingly, we're in a very similar market, but it's flip-flopped. And what I mean by that is that you're seeing that really probably 1 or 2 out of every 10 buyers are being able to be put under contract. And I'm seeing agents who have 10, 15 plus buyers. And what's going on is there are challenges of being able to put them under contract. So as I spoke yesterday, I hope that if you have listened to it, I would recommend going back and listening to it again. But I would challenge you to really think about how you're approaching this business. I want you to really think about, is your approach to the business the right approach? See, one of the things I've always appreciated about golf is they'll call it even your approach shot. And what I mean by that, or what they mean by that, is the way in which you're approaching the game, right? The way in which you're approaching real estate, the way in which you approach your day. So when you start looking at and you start really thinking about, how do I succeed in today's marketplace? If I really want to win the game, and you see agents doing it left and right, there's one fundamental focus that they have, and that is, it is their focus point on taking a listing. Now look, there's a lot of people who listen to me that their primary role and responsibility is to work with buyers. But at the same time, whether you're getting leads or whether you're buying leads or whether you're just simply working leads that you've acquired, what I am continuing to observe is the majority of those leads are on the buying side. We've been in a market where the buying side has become a very, very easy thing, but we've moved into a market where the challenges of the buying side are far more difficult, and we have to make sure that we recognize that our approach to this business may have to change. We may have to alter the way in which we're doing things. So look at the way in which you're approaching this business. I'm going to challenge each of you. I'm going to really encourage you to go out and take the time of what it takes to master the game of listings. Gang, there is nothing wrong with being incredibly talented in working with a buyer, and there's nothing wrong with being incredibly talented in working with a seller. Your ability to be able to do both gives you the protection for years to come with what you do on a daily basis. Again, you need to understand how important it is, and that in today's market, and look, guys, there's no end in sight for the way in which this market is going to be transacting. And if you want consistent business, if you want a consistent flow of income, if you want a consistent flow of how to win the game of real estate, it's going to be the fact that in today's marketplace, you better figure out how to take a listing. So look, you've got to take the time and the energy to figure out how to do that. First and foremost, take the time to practice, rehearse, and internalize. Second, take the time to be able to prospect, knocking doors in places where you can. Some places you still can't do that, but knock doors or, of course, talk on the phone and have conversations in a consistent fashion. The challenge for most of the agents in today's market is we've been in a market where you haven't had to do a lot of prospecting. You've been in a market where you've been able to kind of rest on your laurels of the past, and people are calling you, and yet people are calling you maybe to buy a home, but we're not seeing as much of that in regards to the listing of homes. So look, in the words of George Bernard Shaw, who said, I choose to not necessarily wait for my ship to come in. I'm going to go out into the harbor and go get it. Meaning I'm going to go out of the harbor, go out into the sea and grab my ship, because I'm not going to just wait for it to come in. In speaking to that, ask yourself, what are your routines? What are your rituals? How do you set up your day? What is your approach to the day? Today, I'm going to invite you to really reflect upon that. Take a moment, take some time to ask yourself, how are you really setting up your day? I have a firm belief, and have for many years, that the results of one's life, whether that be their health, whether it be their relationships, or whether it be their income or the business of real estate, it all comes down to how they set things up. So how they set things up is what bases the existence or the final results of their outcome. So what are the setups that you have? What is the approach that you have? So let's dive into a few of these for a moment that I want to discuss with you and share with you. So let's just first talk about just our sleep. I know that may seem like, come on, what are we talking about here? Sleep. Just want to ask you a question. Do you consistently go to bed on time? Do you consistently get up on time? Do you consistently do the same rituals and routines in regards to the way in which you approach your sleep as you would anything? I want you to think for a moment and ask yourself, if you were a young child and one day you went to bed at 1 a.m. and the next day you got up at 5, and that same day you got up at 5 a.m. and the next day you went to bed at 10 p.m. and the next morning you got up at 8 a.m. and then the next day you went to bed at 11 p.m. and then got up at 7 p.m. and the next day you went to bed at midnight and then you got up at 6 a.m. You know how cranky and grumpy that young toddler or child would be if you were treating them that way and letting them to be able to dictate whenever they went to sleep and whenever they woke up. And there's those patterns. And so each one of us in our lives has to pay attention to the patterns, the disciplines, and the rituals of our lives. Patterns, rituals, disciplines, and the habits of our lives. So as you're approaching just the basics of sleep, what does that look for you? We can make fun of the, hey, I'll sleep when I'm dead. But if you don't get a ritual, a consistency to when you go to bed and to when you wake up, you are going to have a tremendous challenge of setting up your day appropriately and the way that you know that it needs to be set up. You're not going to set up your prospecting, your reading, your meditation. You're always going to be under the gun. You're either going to be too tired or you're going to be running late, and you're going to miss out on some of the most important aspects of the setup. So much of the setup comes down to how do we approach the moments of when we go to sleep and the moments in which we wake up. Remember, the day starts before you really ever go to sleep. The next day starts before you even go to sleep. All right, second point. So what you evaluate these, I want you to think about them. How are you approaching them? Do you need to change that? Second, what are you doing in regards to the rituals in 3 distinct areas? Now write these down. Number 1, meditation. Number 2, visualization. And number 3, journaling. I want you to think about those 3 for a moment. Meditation, the ability to find your center, the ability to listen to your creator, the ability to focus on the gratitude, the joy, the bliss, the happiness that life has to offer. You may say, well, gosh, I don't know, but there is so much science behind the fact of the impact of what meditation can do to rewire, to restructure, and to renew your body, to renew your mind, to renew your soul. So are you actively making meditation an active part of your day and a ritual to your life? Second, are you visualizing? Now, for me, oftentimes, a little bit of separation for me of what I visualize and what I meditate about for me. Now, maybe they're the same for you. But when I visualize, what I'm thinking about is as an example, taking a listing. I'm thinking and I'm visualizing and I'm seeing myself succeeding. I'm seeing myself succeeding at every single level I conceivably can. And what I mean by that is I'm seeing maybe it's the home I want to live in. Maybe it's the car I want to drive. Maybe it's the income I want to have. Maybe it's the size of the company. Maybe it's the transactions. Maybe it's the amount of agents. Maybe it's the way I help agents. Maybe it's the relationships of my life. Maybe it's the visualization of seeing my health and my vitality and my body and the activities that I want to do. But I like to see that. And that's a ritual for me on a daily basis. So I meditate. So I get to that center. I find that connection with God. I find that connection within myself. And then I visualize and I see myself and I see others and I see the success and I allow myself to experience and I allow myself to get familiar with it. And then I said that third component is I journal. And the reason why I'm bringing up, guys, I'm telling you, a journal is one of the most important outlets of your life. A journal is where you keep score. A journal is where you record your history. A journal is where you declare your intentions. Your journal is where you declare your gratitudes. A journal is where you share your thoughts, your dreams, your goals, your apprehensions, your doubts, your fears. And you find a place where you can express yourself at any moment, at any time. You don't need to go to a special seminar. You don't need to go to a summit. You don't need to hit a Tony Robbins event. You don't need to do anything to just simply pick up that journal and begin to write, to express yourself, to share with yourself, to heal yourself, to motivate yourself, to inspire yourself, to elevate yourself from where you are, because what you have done is you have connected with your creator as you meditate. You have visualized and seen a bright future, and you then begin to take that journal and begin to disclose and to share and to express yourself and the intentions of your heart and your soul and your mind to live an extraordinary life. Look, the reason why I speak with such, I almost want to say, tenderness and focus to these things is because they are rituals. Now, what I want you to think about a moment, I've used the word routine, I've used the word habits, discipline, right? You know, we've used these words, but the word that means the most to me is a ritual. What are rituals? Well, rituals, if you look at, of course, religion, there's something often very sacred. There's something that they're very meaningful. There's something that are very important. So you can have a daily routine, you can have habits, you can have disciplines, right? You can do all of those things, and we can claim and name them those things. And most people will check it off the list and go, okay, it sounds good. But the moment that when I start talking about declaring your sacred desires, your most tender moments of your life, the history, the highs, the lows, the good, the bad, the intentions, the writing out and the declaring of your life as you see it and you desire it, the meditations and connecting to yourself and to your creator, the visualization of the future. Does that sound like just a routine, a mundane, like check the box, I guess I did it? Not to me. I think it's something much deeper than that. And I hope that each of you will be encouraged with the idea that, look, what if I took this a little bit more serious? What would my days look like if I created some rituals that were very sacred and dear to your heart? What if you took the time and the energy to not just create a routine, but what if it was a ritual? What if it was that important and that meaningful to you? What would it do for you? What would your day feel like? What would your experiences be like? How would you go through your day different because you had such a meaningful experience if you started your day off with a meditation, a visualization, and some really, really moving and meaningful writing in your journal? I have to believe that your day would be so different. And the only way I can declare that to you is that there are days when I do that. And I'm here to tell you there are days that I have not. And the fact is that days are so different when I do those things versus when I don't. If I even do it before a golf game, before I go play even with my buddies, and I visualize and I meditate and I just take a moment to write, either sometimes I'll write in my phone some thoughts and some feelings, or I'll just simply write in my journal. Sometimes it's just a blank piece of paper or in the back of a receipt, but I will write something meaningful, something I've experienced, something I've seen, as I hope that each one of you have already done today, right? As we've affirmed and done our affirmations, guys, are those just routines to you? Do you go, oh, that's not who I am? I don't do those things. I don't want anybody to think I'm crazy, that I'm actually affirming positive things in my life. I'd rather stick with all the negative in my life and tell myself how bad I am and how it's not going to work out and how horrible life is. And well, I'll walk around in fear versus, wait a second here. Everything you want in your life is outside of your comfort zone. There's nothing comfortable about affirmations. There's nothing comfortable about, saying things out loud. But I can promise you that the impact of doing this for nearly now 2 decades of chanting scripts, chanting affirmations, Napoleon Hill, our own affirmations, all of these things have then created this positive energy, this belief system, this idea that you can truly win at the game of life. And as I always say, as I was having a conversation with my daughter Ashley this weekend, she flew in from school for the Easter holiday, and she was here, and I was joking and kind of giving her a hard time, and I said, hey, winning is in the details. And we were joking about it. She goes, she's like, George, she goes, Dad, do you realize that I told my friends that you say that? And now all of my friends that I room with and my buddies at school, every time someone makes a mistake, they always yell out, winning's in the details. And I think that is so cool. The fact that all of a sudden here we begin to realize that if we really want to win at life, can we just keep doing the same routines, the mundane approaches to life? Can we just say, well, I have a habit, so that's how I do it? Or, hey, that's just who I am. That's how I do things. Do you have the capacity to change a belief, change an action, change an approach, change an emotion? The answer is, oh, goodness, I promise you, you do. But you have to take the commitment. You have to take the challenge. You have to take the invitation. You have to take the encouragement to recognize that within yourself, you're capable. I promise you, you are. So we look at just a few of these things that we've looked at. I have a few more I want to share with you before we wrap up today. But I just want you to look at that journaling. Pay attention to it. Look at the way in which you see things and the way in which you visualize. Become familiar with your dreams. Third, ensure within yourself that you take the time and the energy and the effort to meditate. You may say, well, I don't have time. Come on. Today I actually only had 2 minutes. I did a 2-minute meditation. Go YouTube, just YouTube, 2-minute meditations. Boom. You'll have guided meditations. Probably 200 of them will come up that are within 2 minutes. I've had moments where I've only had 1 minute and I'll do a 1-minute meditation. I will feel, hear, experience, and feel my breath, pay attention to my breath. I will breathe from my heart for a minute or two and call it a day with my meditation. Ideally, all the science says 17 to 18 minutes is a magical time. You literally can rewire your brain, your mind, and the way in which you approach your life. Do not underestimate the magnitude of these rituals, these sacred, precious, meaningful moments of your life. All right, a few other things. If I'm talking about rituals, I want you to think about what this business represents for you for a moment. Yes, it pays some bills. Yes, it does a few handful of things. It lets you experience a few maybe fun things here and there. But I think it's much deeper than that. This business allows you to survive.
Looks like we lost George for a minute. I'll see if we can get him back on. Sorry about that.
Are you back on? Are you back on? All right, I am back. Okay. Little technical difficulty. All right. Hey, so, all right. So I was asking you, now we're back. I find myself as I was frantically trying to get back online. So let's talk about a few more about these rituals. All right. So as we talk about the rituals of how you're setting up your day, what I want to get into is specifically prospecting. And what I mean by that is look at what everything is provided for you in regards to this business. It's deeper than just the idea of, well, hey, I get to pay my bills and I get a little survival, but don't diminish the impact of just survival. Some of you, even though many of you on this call are not just trying to survive, you're trying to thrive. There are some of you on this call that are trying to truly just survive. So look, if you look at survival, if you look at the dreams you want to live, if you look at the retirement you want to have, if you look at all of these different factors, you start to recognize, wait a second here, is prospecting just prospecting? Is prospecting not meaningful? Is prospect not a ritual? Is prospect not something that is so precious because it's the very thing that allows you to live the life that you want to live? And whether it is that you're calling your sphere of influence, or whether you're calling your just listed, just sold, or maybe you're brave enough and you're calling the for sale by owners and the expireds, and maybe you're door knocking and maybe you're making the calls, but are not those meaningful moments? Are not those the moments that allow you to provide for your children, to say yes more times, to go on a family trip or many trips? Is it not the ability to invest, to buy other property, to invest in the stock market, to be able to be way beyond survival, to be able to help those you love, to be able to give away money, to help your local church, to give away dollars to your community, to be able to give your time and your energy? Is not prospecting something pretty meaningful? Or do you just discount it and all you keep telling yourself is how much you hate it, how much you dislike it, how much you don't want to do it, how wish you didn't have to do it, how hard it is for you to do it? Could you not rewrite the story that you tell yourself in regards to prospecting? Could you not share with yourself a new way in which you approach the game of prospecting? Could you not tell yourself how meaningful it is, how important it is, and that it is truly a ritual for your life? Could you, instead of every day avoiding the idea of calling people, and instead know how meaningful and how important, how precious it is? Could you not tell yourself something different? The answer is, you know you can. But the problem is that we get into routines, right? We get into patterns. We get into habits. We get into ways in which we do things that we never take that step back and say, wait a second, how am I approaching my life today? because the outcome and the results of your life are always based on the way in which you set up the rituals, the routines, the habits, the disciplines, always. So if you aren't having the success that you want, then ask yourself, how am I setting up my life? How? Because the fact is that how you set it up, how you approach it, is how you're going to get the results that either you desire or the ones you're trying to avoid. But either way, that's how it's going to happen. So as you move through your life, specifically today in the game of real estate, how are you going to approach prospecting today? Will you call the people who are desperate to hear from you in this market, who are petrified of the market, or are you one of the ones who's petrified? Are you going to stand strong as a leader, guiding and navigating, directing and influencing people in a meaningful, passionate, caring, compassion? I don't know. Are you? That's entirely up to you. Because the fact is that you get the chance to write your story, to write the outcome, to write the activities. See, we will get into habits and routines of condemning ourselves. I would challenge you to show a little compassion to yourself, a little bit of grace. Stop holding on to the past of how you did things or how you made mistakes or only if you could have, would have, and should have. And take a step forward and recognizing that this moment, this day, you can rewrite everything. You can rewrite the story and you can start a whole new life this moment, the way in which you approach the business. There is nothing magical except for the fact that, as an example, he does it. When I look at people who consistently prospect, like a Brian Burnett, like a Brian Noel, like others that you know in this industry who consistently prospect, who have a better story that they have told themselves. And so they're okay with it. They don't fight it. They don't resist it. They don't argue about it. They don't defend against it. They just simply submit. They submit to the process, to the ritual, to the meaningful approach to prospecting, because they recognize that dreams, goals, and your most sacred aspirations are going to come about because you open your mouth, because you knock on a door, because you speak to another individual, because the power of that conversation. So look, in wrapping up, there's so many rituals I could talk about, right? I could talk about exercise. We could talk about practicing, role playing. We could talk about so many different things, what you read, what you watch, what you listen to. We could talk about who you spend your time with. We could talk about so many things that we just discount, think, oh, that's no big deal. I didn't read today, no big deal. Oh, I didn't exercise today, no big deal. It doesn't, I'm strong. I'm a really strong person. It doesn't matter who I spend my time with. It's fine. I'll be fine. I'm tough. I'm strong. I can withstand talking, being around negative people, poisonous people, people who are, they suck life out of people, but I'm fine. I'll be good with them. I can handle myself. Guys, gals, that's not a great approach to life. It's not. So let's go back to what I talked about. Patterns, habits, patterns, habits, and disciplines. But that's one approach. And yes, they're meaningful words. But the better thing I would tell you is what is going to be a ritual in your life, or rituals. What are going to be the things that are sacred, precious, meaningful? Those are the things that I would be focusing on. And I just know that in today's market, if I can meditate and connect with myself and my creator, if I can really visualize and see my future, and if I can write that out in my journal, just like I did today, I wrote it out. 2 journals I wrote in today. My point is that if you can do that, I can tell you that if you can write it, if you can see it, if you can think about it, if you can connect to it, and then you go out and act upon it, and you prospect, and you speak to people, not just 2 or 3 people, speak to lots of people. And what would happen to your career? What would happen to your life? How many more times would you be able to say yes to those you love? How much money could you give away? How much of your time could you give to others? How much wealth could you accumulate? What would be the blessing and the gift to your posterity, to your children? What would happen if that occurred for you? I believe extraordinary results would occur. And you would be so fulfilled. And what is fulfillment? It is happiness and it is peace. Peace of mind, happiness of soul. That is when we are fulfilled. And that is when we are going down the pathway of ensuring that every day we are contributing to others and to ourselves. And we are growing and we are giving and we are growing internally for ourselves. And when we grow and the focus is to give and to contribute, man, life is magical. And you won't be in that space of survival or pile driving and having to make something happen. It'll flow because it'll be a sacred, meaningful journey. That's how I try and strive to live my life. I am not perfect at it. I have not perfected it, but I can promise you that when I am on that path, man, life is good. It is so beautiful when that path is lived. All right, let's do some affirmations. Let's end strong. Guys, be a contributor to life. Don't stand back in the shadows of life. Don't sit on the bench. Get in the game, play full out. Let's do some affirmations and let's have a great day and have a great rest of the week. All right, here we go.